Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Mark Stoops, the Kentucky Wildcats, continue to make some really impressive moves in the transfer portal, landing another commitment, this one coming from former Tennessee offensive tackle Gerald Mincey. And what excites me most about Gerald Mincey winding up in Lexington, and I think a lot of Tennessee fans would probably agree with this take, Gerald Mincey, a guy that heading into the 2023 season was a name that, if you read the Tennessee practice reports, a name that a lot of people were excited about, and although didn't necessarily reach that standard that a lot of Tennessee fans were excited for Kentucky fans, you're really excited to see if he can take that step heading into 2024. A guy with all the tools, right? 6'6", 335 pounds, phenomenal athlete for the size and the kind of bodies that Kentucky wants on that offensive line. You take a look at when Kentucky's putting out their best teams. I mean, that big blue wall, like back when Coach Schlemmer, the guy that got me into this Kentucky program when I was growing up, it's hard to not fall in love with that kind of Kentucky football. And a guy like Gerald Mincey kind of reminds you of those type of guys they had on the offensive line. Want to talk about Gerald Mincey, what he brings to the table for Kentucky, and then do a little recap in terms of what Kentucky has coming in through the transfer portal. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys. And it's been a blast covering all of these commitments the last couple of weeks. Obviously, you guys know I'm a huge fan of what Kentucky has done. Cannot thank you guys enough for rocking with the boys. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into Gerald Mincey. And again, the thing that excites me most about Gerald Mincey and the conversation that we have with a lot of transfer portal additions is I feel like when guys get taken out of the transfer portal, people think they're finished products. And at the end of the day, a lot of these guys are still 20, 21, 22 years old that still have a lot of development left to do. And I think a guy like Gerald Mincey kind of reminds me of that. A guy that, again, has all the traits to be a very good offensive lineman, 6'6", 335 pounds. If he puts it together at Kentucky, I think you're looking at a really, really solid offensive tackle. And another thing I like that you can't really teach, one, the position versatility, has played both left tackle and right tackle, which gives Kentucky a lot of flexibility. And again, when you have the ability to play both sides, not all players do. And so that gives Kentucky some kind of wiggle room in terms of how they want to get their best five on that offensive line. But more importantly, has a ton of starting experience at the SEC level. And again, we have this conversation. It's hard to find starting caliber tackles that are available in the transfer portal, much less guys that have already proven it at the SEC level. And although Gerald Mincey, I think, still has some steps to be taken with his development, I think a guy that Kentucky fans should be really excited about in terms of him coming in and being a really productive tackle for Kentucky. Take a look at what he did in 2023, 281 pass blocking opportunities, gave up only 17 pressures. Those numbers were better in 2022. I just don't think he took that step in 2023. So I'm excited to see if you can get back to that Gerald Mincey where you've seen him playing some really good football in 2022, played over 1,000 snaps during his career. So he has the physical traits. He has the starting experience at the SEC level. That's kind of all you can ask for in terms of going after offensive tackles in the transfer portal. Now, I want to get to what Kentucky has done in the transfer portal. And for the Kentucky fans that have been rocking with the boys the last couple of weeks, like, you guys know I'm a huge fan of what Kentucky has done in the portal. One, want to thank you guys, the Kentucky fans. You guys have shown a lot of support over the last couple of weeks as we've recapped these commitments. Now, taking a look at what we've done so far, I want to start all the way at the beginning. And it seems like we've almost forgot about this, but you go out and land former five-star quarterback Brock Vandagriff. That, I mean, really, you talk about a guy that has potential to be a star at the college football level. That's Brock Vandagriff, right? He got beat out by a guy, Carson Beck, who would have been probably a day 2 NFL draft pick had he declared to the NFL. Brock Vandagriff, you don't really know what he is yet, but you know what he was coming out of high school, and there was a reason he was a 5-star coming out. He's got a phenomenal arm. He's a very big and fluid athlete in terms of extending plays. He's a box checker. Like, he checks off every box that you want in a premier quarterback at the SEC level. That's why he committed to the Georgia Bulldogs. And then you go out and continue to add wide receiver talent around him, and a guy like Raymond Cantrell and Jamori Macklin, who do kind of different things. And I think that's what excites me most about this wide receiver gets is a guy like Jamori Macklin, an elite separator, can be very effective with the football in his hands, is going to run really clean routes and kind of be a quarterback's best friend. And then a guy like Raymond Cottrell, who's 6'3", 215 pounds, that can be that physical presence on the boundary, working vertically down the field. I think those guys balance each other out extremely well. And then you have a guy like Chip Trayanum, who I said when he committed, kind of reminded me of how Chris Rodriguez used to run the rock for Kentucky, right? 5'11", 233, a largely no-nonsense back. Like, there is no dancing in the backfield. He is downhill. He is inviting contact. You talk about replacing a running back who I thought was phenomenal in Ray Davis. I mean, Chip Trayanum certainly can do that. And you add Gerald Mincey, and you add a guy like Jalen Farmer. Like, you're kind of getting back to what Kentucky wants to do, and that is be physical along the line of scrimmage and run the football. And you have a passing attack with Brock Vandergriff and some of the young wide receivers they have, and guys like Dane Key and Barry and Brown, but also the guys you have coming in Jamori Macklin and Raymond Cottrell. This seems to be a really complete offense. Then you look to the defense, and you're trying to replace some guys at that off-ball linebacker spot. You go out and grab the best linebacker that was available in the transfer portal in Jamon Dumas-Johnson, who was an All-American candidate to start the season, got banged up. This is a guy that is a premier linebacker at the SEC level. If you're looking at maybe where Kentucky should continue to look in the portal, maybe you're thinking about that secondary position, but you got to bring in a guy like Christian Story, who I think can compete in the back end. The way I look at this Kentucky transfer portal class is a lot of boxes checked. A lot of positions that you said, all right, we got to take that step in heading into 2024. Mark Stoops is taking that step. Now, I'm excited to see what Kentucky won, the product that's going to be on the field in 2024, especially if a guy like Brock Vandergriff hits. But I'm still excited to see. I don't think Mark Stoops is necessarily done yet in the transfer portal. Continue to monitor if they bring in any guys in that defensive back room. But as a whole, like, I'm really excited about what this Kentucky team can be in 2024. I'm really excited about what they've done in the transfer portal thus far. Wanted to hop on, give you guys some of my thoughts on Gerald Mincey, who I think has a ton of traits and I think could have a lot of upside for Kentucky. More importantly, talk about this transfer portal class really kind of developing this roster heading into 2024. Appreciate all of you guys rocking with the boys again. I've been having a blast breaking down all these commitments. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.